Hey friends, this is After 83 Weeks. So happy that you have joined us live. Tonight we are talking about the Clash After the Bash. That's the episode of Monday Nitro that went down after Bash at the Beach 1997. And you are going to get the opportunity to ask any follow-up questions you have for Eric Bischoff right here tonight. My name is Christy Olson. I have my friends Adam Woods and George Hermoza here. Hey guys, we're missing Steve tonight, but he'll be back next week.
Thank God he's not here. Jesus Christ, it's about time we got rid of him.
I'm pretty sure he's somewhere listening. So let's give him the man himself. Eric Bischoff, how you doing tonight?
I am just rocking. I'm having a great night.
Well, we're happy that you were here. And if you weren't, we wouldn't talk about you that way, like we just did about Steve. I promise.
Yeah, I bet. One of these days I'll come in. Spy on you.
Oh, well, you dropped some pretty big news this week about your brand new book, which is called Grateful. Kind of a surprise. It sounds like a bit of a foray away from the traditional wrestling book. Has the response been what you expected? Are you excited to get this out to people now?
Oh, of course. There's always that, that little bit of, I guess, reality, maybe self-doubt. I don't know which one is which. Where you go, I wonder if anybody really cares, So there's that kind of, it's not anxiety. It's excitement in a weird way. But yeah, because the process has been so good, and I know it's good quality, and that's because of Guy Blake. Guy did a great job really drawing out the stories that made this book unique or what make it unique. Because we cover wrestling in far more depth and detail and from a different angle than I usually do on the podcast, just because a book allows you that opportunity, particularly when you're working with a guy like Guy, a researcher like Guy Evans, and an author who does such a great job just drilling and drilling and digging and digging and drilling to really get to the essence of a story or a moment. So that part was really fun. So yeah, I'm excited to get it out. It's different than what anybody's going to think. Here's a really cool part. And I'm probably bagging myself for doing this. I should probably just keep this a secret until it's actually out in the market. But for the first time, nobody's ever done this before that I'm aware of. Somebody can prove me wrong, please do, but I don't think you can. We're going to put a QR code at the end of every chapter in the book. So you buy the book, you have a physical book, there'll be a QR code at the end of every chapter that'll take you to an exclusive interview about whoever was the subject of that particular chapter. And you'll hear their perspective on what I had to say. And like I said, it's never been done before. It's an interactive, tangible book. It's not like an e-book or something like that. It's a book like you buy at the bookstore. And it's pretty cool. So I'm excited about that just because no one's ever done it.
It's just a trendsetter.
Yeah, that's huge. So they're going to get to read the chapter before everybody else, and then you're going to sit down and interview them, or has this happened already?
I'm not going to interview them. It will be in the interview with the subject of that particular chapter at the end of that chapter. And it will probably be somebody else interviewing them because we want to get their perspective, their version of that particular story within that chapter.
That's so cool, Eric. Was that a Guy Evans thing? Something that he had been looking to incorporate into his books, but it works better for you because you're a big deal?
No. But it's not my idea. Like, I'm not like a lot of people who like to take credit for other people's ideas. It was not my idea. I'm cool. My book is going to be likely the first book with that feature in it, that benefit. But it was actually a guy by the name of Brad Blajukian. I'm not even going to try to spell it. Brad is a professor in Southern California, professor in biology, as a matter of fact. But he's also a book author. And he wrote a book a while back, published, did very well, called The Wax Pack. And it is essentially about a self-discovery journey of a young man kind of bouncing off the bottom and decided he's going to take this old pack of baseball cards that he had in a drawer and find out what happened to some of the guys within that deck. And he goes on a road trip all over the United States and he locates and sits down and interviews a lot of these people. Some of them never really made it in Major League. Some of them went on to have a phenomenal career, Hall of Fame, and everything in between. It's really fascinating. And about what he learned along the way. That's the Wax Pack. Well, he's working on a book called The Six Pack, which is the same kind of format, only about 6 particular wrestlers who were part of a specific WrestleMania. And he's out on the road right now visiting them. I retweet a lot of his stuff. It's called Wax Pack. Look him up at Wax Pack. And he's going around and talking to some of these guys and reconstructing the similar kind of story in a format. It was actually his idea. And I asked him permission to go ahead and do it even before he does when his book comes out.
Wow, that's cool. So you kind of been chomping at the bit to get this out there to people and see what the response would be. That's awesome. We have some live responses from everybody tuning in today. And I'm so sorry I kicked George out of the broadcast on accident, but I assume he'll be back any moment. In the meantime, Coach Rosie says he's excited for StarCast. He is excited for the QR code feature, and his wrestling club is actually going to be reading the book, Eric. So I'm guessing that's a good 15, 20 copies right there.
Good. And hey, I forgot to mention while I'm shilling my ass off is you can pre-order the book right now, bischoffbook.com, and your copy will come autographed by both Guy Evans and myself. And the book will come out 11/11/22, November 11th, 22 this year. But you can pre-order yours now and get it autographed. There you go.
That's so appropriate, I think, for the whole theme, right? He's grateful. It's 11/11, like the numerology, the manifestation. It's very woo-woo, Eric.
Woo! Well, see? Woo! It is woo-woo.
Well, I mean, are you Costco? Because that's a hell of a value. My goodness. Like, it's trapped up in one whole offering. So as a wrestling fan, I can't wait. I think I just pre-ordered right now.
But wait, there's more. No.
Oh. There you
A
go.
forward by McMahon, according to one of our favorites, McMahon himself.
Yeah.
Who also hopes that there'll be a chapter about how Russo was so underrated. Let's not hold our breath on that one. We can assume that's a guy who won't be featured in any of your QR interviews. Is that a safe bet?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe. Never know.
Bro.
Yeah, I would edit that. I would invoke my co-writer's authority and pull the plug in that shit.
Oh. I thought it was going to be your rematch clause. I mean, you and Russo in a cage for the world title. No?
Okay. Keep it rolling.
All right. Well, that's not the only big news, Eric Bischoff. You're not the only one making waves in the world of pro wrestling this week. The big announcement came, Ric Flair's final match. He is going to go up against Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett. Did you know that? So the announcement was made this week. You guys recorded before that. Did you know that when you and Conrad sat down to record?
Okay.
Yeah, or you became suspicious when Conrad cut that promo on Jeff Jarrett about a third of the way through your show.
Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't know.
There you go.
Well, now the cat is finally out of the bag. And another thing McMahon wants is predictions, Eric. This is happening next weekend, so we got a little time yet for everybody to sling mud and that sort of thing. But who would you put your money on if you were betting on wrestling here in Vegas, where you can do that?
Is this a real question?
It is a real question.
So
Mac wants to know.
Andrade and Flair.
Yep.
Against Jeff Jarrett. Howdy, y'all. Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. Here's why. No, I'm trying to have fun with Jeff, and he'd appreciate that, I think. But Karen wouldn't. Karen would be hot. She'd be chasing me around, swinging her fucking purse at me.
Hey, it can happen if you get involved, Eric.
Screaming at the top of her lungs, because that's what Karen loves to do. But look, Andrade's at the top of his game. No offense to Jay Lethal, but come on. And now you look at Rick and Jeff. Here's the deal with Jeff. It's jealousy and envy, right? I mean, that story, that docuseries that they put out that built up that story between everybody was done so well from a storytelling perspective, right? It had an act 1, it had an act 2, and it had an act 3. It's clearly defined as about anything that I've seen in wrestling on television in, 20 years. And it was very, very basic. It was so basic because the emotional elements that motivate Jarrett and Lethal are envy in the case of Jeff Jarrett, because he really, really wants to be Ric Flair. He never could be. He never will be. But he wants it so bad that it's becoming an obsession. And Jay, it's jealousy.
Ooh.
His feelings are hurt. He's jealous that he's not able to get in there and be a part of Ric's main event. That's what drove him to do what he did, right? Simple, basic storytelling with two of the basic, sins, of mankind is envy and jealousy. It's probably the central focus of more stories, books, movies, fucking pictographs on cave walls. It's basic stuff. Shakespeare loved it. And that's what that docuseries was. That's what wrestling storytelling really is. Not what most people that watch wrestling today that really don't understand story. They just call whatever they see on television a story for some reason. But that's real storytelling, and it's emotional, and people relate to it, which is why it's gotten such a positive response, and why this match and this event, Starrcast 5, and that particular pay-per-view of Ric Flair's last match, I think is going to probably blow a lot of people's minds in terms of the success that it's going to have, even compared to AEW or WWE. Respectful of the difference between the two, right? And what Conrad is doing. I'm not trying to compare them. One's more or going to be more successful than another, but the level of success that I think Starrcast is going to achieve is going to blow people's minds because it doesn't have television. There's no television. It's crazy how well it's doing, and I can't wait to see the event and to feel the emotion and to be a part of it, even just sitting at ringside. And then from the business side of things, I'm really interested in how well this thing performs. It's going to shock people.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. And it's funny because in this last episode of 83 Weeks, you were talking about, hey, the numbers that you were getting on Nitro, and the captivating of the imagination of the fans, it could be done again, right?
Could be done again.
Right, exactly.
You saw a perfect example in that. Look, if anybody that writes for WWE right now or produces or AEW, please go watch that docuseries because you're going to get a master class on just basic good wrestling storytelling, real storytelling with structure and discipline and motivation and inciting incidents and drama. You're going to have it all. And really, if you just applied those basics, and they really are basics, folks, to what we're currently seeing on television in both companies, I'm not picking on one or the other. Settle down, bitches. I'm not picking on anybody in particular. Saying in general, dweebs. But yeah, it was amazing. Sorry. Did I go off on a tangent?
No, I liked it. One of the things
Justify.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're gonna get Jorge back in here, Adam.
Yeah.
I don't mean to cut you off, but come on now.
You went on so much of a tangent that my power went out.
I thought I kicked you out, George, so I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. So I guess I'll fill in for I'll make it time. Yesterday,
Go for it.
and this is something I've been wanting to ask for a while. And I guess it's a little relevant from AEW Dynamite yesterday's because we saw a gentleman by the name of Cole Carter. Is that his name? Cole Carter. He was in NXT for a little bit, and he got released like 30 days ago or like a month ago, and now he shows up in AEW. What's your opinion on kind of AEW bringing in just maybe like non-contracted talent. Like they just bring in people, they have them take up TV time on Dynamite. It just, I don't know. I feel like if I was a guy contracted, I'm like, why are you giving this new guy that's not even under contract TV time when you can be giving it to us? I get it. Maybe you want to take a good look at them, but don't they have dark elevation for those things? Like, what's your opinion on AEW using just a lot of non-contracted people for their main TV show?
I'm looking something up right now to be a part of the answer. I'm not being a root fucker, so bear with me.
Even if you were, that would be.
Bear with me. I'm looking for the ratings for last night's show. Do we have it?
Oh, for last night's Dynamite?
Yeah.
I'm sure Brian
Probably didn't pop up yet, which is weird, right?
Right. But probably didn't crack 1 million.
Goes down despite barbed wire shark cage match. 0.32, 910,000 viewers.
It's actually less than last week. So there's your answer. You know, look, I am all for introducing. First of all, if there's young talent out there and you're thinking about bringing them on seriously, you do have to put them out in front of a crowd with some pressure on them. And sometimes, yeah, could you put them in a dark match and elevation? Sure, but that's not kind of the same thing. It's better than nothing. Don't get me wrong. But it's not really the same thing as the pressure of being on live TV. So there's an argument. There's a reason why kind of randomly you put someone on TV like that. But I think, and look, I didn't see it, so I'm not being critical, but I think in general, you've got to build your own base and you've got to get some momentum going in order to really benefit some of those young guys that you're bringing in and giving that opportunity to. Because if your show's not over, you can argue all day long whether 900,000 people in today's new standard, which I still think is bullshit, most of it, because it's not, television is relevant, ratings are relevant. But if your show's not growing, despite all those things that you're doing to try to make it grow, if it's not growing, maybe it's a little premature to do that kind of thing. Do it when you've got some momentum, when you're actually building and growing as opposed to existing. That would be my only note. But again, it depends how they used it, man. Maybe it was great. Maybe the audience loved it. I don't know. I didn't see it.
Well, also, I mean, it's guys that maybe, I mean, unless you were watching NXT anyway, you might have not known, you know, it's even more perplexing for the audience if you don't know and the person wasn't over where the promotion that they called home before, then it makes, I mean, all it does is create
I doubt they, I don't know. I have no idea. But maybe they just brought him in because they wanted to give him a look and wanted to see how he performed on television, regardless of whether he was at Next or not. Maybe they weren't even that familiar with him from NXT. I keep saying Next, sorry. NXT.
I want you to keep calling it Next.
I don't know why I do that. Did they used to call it Next?
Never.
Why the fuck? Because it looks like Next. NXT. It's like Next. It's an acronym. I love acronyms.
Except for AEWs, which it reminded you of a plumbers union. So,
which by the way, you guys had Wildcat Willie. You guys were a little stumped on maybe what an AEW mascot would be. So I'm suggesting we bring in Anteater Walt. You're welcome.
And moving on.
The cash back.
I'm just letting that sink in. I'm letting the listeners and viewers just go, ooh, that was good.
Yeah.
Well, here's a comment from Ibzan who wanted you to know Alex Wright said in a podcast from Germany this week that you were a pleasure to work with and he was grateful for the opportunity to work in the States. So a grateful man makes Alex Wright a grateful man. I love that.
Well, I liked Alex. He was a great kid, amazing talent at such an early age, and really never got to see his potential. He was so good, but he got saddled with a silly ass gimmick that he just couldn't shake. You know, it's a little bit like Johnny B. Bad character for Mark Merrow. You know, Mark Merrow had so much potential and could have done so much more, but once you're Johnny B. Bad and you do it as well as Mark Merrow did it, Mark Merrill performed the Johnny B. Bad character very, very well. As a matter of fact, too well, because he couldn't shake it. And Alex Wright kind of fell into that same category. And as a result, neither of them, went as far as they really should have, because they had more than enough talent to do it.
I respectfully disagree. I think you guys is when you guys turned him heel. I thought that was amazing. You guys gave him the cruiserweight title, the TV title, and he was able to shake off that kind of early rookie, dancing, Chippendale dance or whatever gimmick he had. But when you guys turned him heel, like I felt like he was kind of really coming into his own. If anything, I think the Berlin thing kind of messed him up a little bit.
It might have. And I can't remember. Was the Berlin thing under my watch?
Yeah, we actually have a question about this from Ben. He said, I listened to Alex Wright recently, listened to the same podcast. Alex mentioned about the Berlin gimmick. Ben says, I thought the gimmick was a Nazi gimmick, but it was a vampire gimmick. So Ben is asking, what was the gimmick? Eric, we're not even sure if you were there at that time. Do you remember any of this?
I need to know what year the Berlin.
This
gimmick.
was 90. I want to say it was maybe like a couple weeks before you left in 99.
The way it's spelled, I would guess it was under my watch.
1999, the end of 1999.
Okay, well, it depends. If September 10th is the end, then it might have been mine. But I was out of there on September 10th of 1999.
I feel like I remember
what I'm
some
seeing
of the
here is
vignettes
from
in the
November.
summertime.
It's from November, so that was not
99.
under my watch. So I couldn't tell you. But I don't know if that.
And don't blame him either.
Here's the deal. Even if, I agree with you on the heel turn, because even as he was being, and it started with Dusty Rhodes, by the way. That's where the Alex Wright Dick Dancer character came from, and the heel turn I think did work for him, because even when he was being pushed down everybody's throat as a babyface, just like Johnny B. Bad, they were rejecting it. And what kind of babyface gets up there and swivels his hips and does that shit? And that's a narcissistic thing to do, right? So he was being pushed as a babyface with characteristics of a heel, great heel characteristics, but he's being pushed as a babyface. Gee, why didn't that work? It had nothing to do with his talent. By the time he turned heel and then was put into that Berlin gimmick, it wouldn't have mattered if that was like the best idea in the history of ideas, because the wheels were falling off of WCW so bad at that point. His character would have not able to have stood out well enough with some momentum behind it in a healthy, growing environment. It would have been destined to failure regardless of the quality of the character and the idea of Berlin. That's my opinion. Once your ship is going down, it's not like one gimmick is going to save it, or one character is going to just stop the downward trend, and things are going to get healthy again, and that character is going to grow despite the fact the product is losing audience. It doesn't work that way. You've got to introduce a gimmick or a character that actually is pretty good and has a great potential while the company is actually ascending and growing, not when it's nosediving, because it's not fair to that character. Whether it's the best idea or the worst idea, you'll never know.
Now, speaking of ideas, I know Berlin didn't happen under your watch, but what happened under your roof is you and Lori played host to one UFC Triple Crown, UFC Hall of Famer Dan the Beast Severn. And one thing about Dan Severn's WWF career, they said that he might have been too bland for their presentation, and they wanted to give him a demonic gimmick. So if you had the chance to sign Dan Severn to WCW, could you have mitigated whatever blandness that Vince probably saw?
I don't know. I don't know. I would have worked around it. I would have found a character because I don't think Dan could be, and I don't know Dan real. Yes, he was over at my house for dinner. We had a great time. He's a great guy. And I've known Dan for a long time. We've crossed paths many, many times, and we have mutual friends and so forth in amateur wrestling as well as professional wrestling. But I don't think he has it in him to be an evil character. but he's a legit badass. And there's a part of him that could be a great character, but you'd have to be careful with that one. Because asking a guy like Dan to try to portray something that is so antithetical to who he is in every way would require a great amount of acting training. And Dan doesn't have that. So rather than trying to teach him how to be an actor, which is not easy to do, and not everybody can do it or do it well, I would kind of work in reverse and look at who he really is and how do I make that more interesting than it just is on the surface. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that made perfect sense. And especially, later on, you would have, success with, I believe, Tank Abbott, in his presentation in WCW and his run with Jerry Flynn, so the reason why I wanted it out of you, because like you have a bit of a track record to have somebody of this similar kind of social claim with you being a former UFC star, you made it work with Tank Abbott. So to me, my brain is just like, oh, what could he have done with Severn?
You know what would be fun to make? Now, I don't know if Dan could handle this, but this is kind of fun to riff like this every once in a while. But now just thinking about it, because I've never thought about it before, and I don't know if you could get Dan to do this, and it may be pushing him a little too far outside his comfort zone. But, Dan looks like the fucking Marlboro Man, and Dan is a throwback. He's a very, and I like him, and I got to know him a lot more over the weekend, and I'm sure we'll be hanging out more in the future. He's a farm boy from Michigan. Now, I'm a Detroit guy from Michigan. I didn't grow up on a farm like he did, but he's a farm boy, 7 brothers and sisters or 6 brothers and sisters or whatever it was. Very basic, grew up in a very kind of, kind of like 40s and 50s America, is the way he grew up. And in today's world, that would be kind of out of place, right? But what if you just turn the volume up on that just a little bit? And he was kind of a throwback from an old Western character. A badass, eats you alive, but kind of a good old boy, just wants to be polite. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. But goddamn, if you piss him off, he just tears the shit out of you. Or offend him, or if he sees you offend an old lady at an arena, it just rip you to shreds, because that's what a good old farm boy would do. But take that character and just turn up the volume on that. I don't want to say make it comedic, because you don't want to go so far as that it's yuck yuck. But if it's just kind of violently sweet, yeah, that's it. Violently sweet.
I like it. That was better than I expected. But you're.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry for the low expectations.
No. But
you get to know me, they'll rise kind of a little bit.
Well, the thing about it is he's got him and Don Fry.
Him and Jesus?
No, Don Fry, right? Other MMA great. They have the Toxic Masculinity podcast, and you get a little bit of that where they're just two, like gritty motherfuckers that don't like how the world is. So it's kind of that. So you kind of pitched it without even pitching it. I like it.
I got some Don Fry stories that we'll save for off the air, but
okay. 10 points.
All right. Well, on the air real quick, let's take a moment and wish Tracy a happy birthday. This is a super chat from Madden's Elite Podcast. He says, congrats on your book, Eric. My girlfriend Tracy is a huge fan of you and was wondering if you could say happy B-Day. Her name is Tracy.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Tracy. Happy birthday to you.
Ooh.
I didn't get a birthday
Marilyn
wish.
a run for her money.
I didn't get any
That's 'cause we don't
birthday
know when your
wishes.
birthday is, George.
It was on Saturday.
$5.
Gotta get it in our calendar.
Yeah.
We got another great question. This one coming in from Ben. He said, I got to know what Eric thinks about the WWE Monday Night Raw going rated 14. Will this help storytelling and push gimmicks on the card? Will it get a big rating back?
Okay. I suggest you go to adfreeshows.com. Subscribe now. Okay, there's a show there, a podcast. I usually do once a week, every week except for this week I'm taking off. It's called Strictly Business. We talk, myself, John Alba, we go into in-depth conversation from a business-to-business perspective on this very subject. So I'm going to answer it very succinctly for the sake of saving time. I think it's interesting as hell. Yes, it'll help improve storytelling because you have more palette, you have more colors in your little art kit in order to paint pictures with for TV. So yes, I think it expands the colors from which you have to work, which means the pictures you paint will be more interesting to watch. As to whether or not it attracts a larger audience, time will tell. It depends how much of a big deal everybody makes of it. Right now, it's just a leaked memo, and it may not even really come to fruition, whether or not the memo was real or not real. Doesn't matter. It's just a leaked memo. But when it happens, we'll find out. How's that?
The answer is no, by the way.
Oh. Wow.
Because you spend so much time in the television industry, you've got just you're sitting on a fucking stack of experience that is incomparable in any podcast or YouTube show on the planet, which makes your opinion really important because so many people like you have them.
Well, can we agree that, for example, again, my opinion, my experience, WWE has a hard time committing to something, right? And in my opinion, one of the reasons why I think that the NWO was so successful is because you guys and you and everyone else committed to changing the look and the feel of WCW and Monday Nitro. And that's why.
Let me stop you right there. With all due respect, I know where you're going, and I appreciate what is really a compliment. But let's be fair. Let's be honest. Let's just be honest about things. When WWE did commit to make the strategic, creative decision to stop targeting teens and preteens and do what Nitro had been doing to them for over a year, right? And by going with an 18 to 49-year-old target audience instead of a teen and preteen, because that's what WWE is doing. Vince McMahon made the strategic decision to do what we were doing. He followed our lead. And he also made the commitment to turn up the volume and to do a better job and go to further extremes than Turner was willing to go in order to grab that audience's attention and drag them back over to the WWE side of the river. That's what Vince committed to, and that's what he did successfully enough where he could turn around and buy WCW. So I disagree with the lack of commitment and discipline to stick with things. What I will tell you is that it wasn't WWE's decision, in my opinion. I don't know either for a fact, but I would venture to say it was a USA Network decision to go PG because that's where the money is. Safer, bigger bucks, higher CPMs. But times have changed. It's been 8 years now, I think, whatever it's been in the PG era. And the networks are probably looking at an entirely different ad sales landscape and believe that they can increase their ad sales by moving that rating. It was not a WWE decision. I would bet almost everything I own on that. I bet you it was a network decision from both Fox and USA.
That's what I was going to say right now.
Oh, nice.
Imagine that.
Hold your heat, brother. Go back to wrestling school.
I got a match this Saturday. I got a title match this Saturday. So
you just got a lesson. Stealing somebody's heat.
Well, I mean, speaking of stealing heat, right? You mentioned about who was like the most iconic woman, right, in Nitro history.
Yeah. And
Conrad kind of threw it to, maybe Kimberly Page because of the formation of the Nitro Girls and what have you. You went with Sherry Martel, and you could even make an argument for Madusa, right? One thing that happened this week on NXT, or next, as you say, championships being thrown in the title, like in the trash. Much like Madusa did way back in the day. Did you get to see it? Any thoughts on it?
I absolutely did not see it. No offense to the company or the roster, but not my thing. No, I didn't see it. I saw clips of it on social media. Look, it's not the first time a title has been trashed on TV. You know,
Right.
Somebody, people have thrown them in rivers and driven over them with trucks and stolen them and who knows what else to them. Disrespecting a belt is a storytelling device, and it's not like Madusa invented it or me. But the idea of taking another company's championship belt while you're going head to head with them live and doing it was a little different. It kind of fell into its own category. But that type of thing that happened on NXT, at least that I saw, the way it was presented in a clip, cool, but not that unusual.
Right, but in terms of their, ability to commit, the NXT tag team, women's tag team titles, and the main roster tag titles haven't been there that long, right? And it seems like, with all the women's revolution and everything like that, you would think, there have been an incarnation of the WWF women's title since like the mid '80s or the early '80s, and it just seems like the first to
Jumping
go.
Bomb Angels.
Right, exactly. So to me, that just kind of signals their lack of commitment to particular
Maybe because it's not working. Maybe it's because on the television side of the equation, as a storytelling device within a 2-hour show, it's just not working. How about that? How about it's not a lack of commitment, it's a lack of potential. And by that, I don't mean that any individual woman within that category isn't an extremely talented person and doesn't have potential. But the idea of a women's tag division, how many times have I said over the last couple of decades that tag team wrestling is extremely difficult from a strictly financial perspective? Because it's one segment of a show, just like every other segment is one segment of a show. But in order to have a consistent women's tag division means that you have to continually bring in women that are of sufficient talent and experience to keep that division vibrant without it starting to repeat itself very, very quickly, and depend on the same core characters, which is a pretty small core, right, compared to the overall audience or the overall roster. So it's more of an economic challenge because of the lack of depth of TV quality talent and experience. That's why it doesn't work. That's why men's tag teams, for the most part, long term, they may exist in a way, but they don't necessarily work. There's exceptions from time to time, right? You're seeing it over in AEW right now with Dax and his partner. Yes, I love them, by the way. I think they're fucking great. There's some of the most interesting things that I see on wrestling today when I drop in, right? Love their stuff. They're characters. They're good guys. They're good for the business. There's a lot of good things about them. But for the most part, you're not going to be talking about anything happening in any tag team division 5 years from now. Anything that's going on in the last 3 years, you're not going to be talking about it 5 years from now. It's really hard to maintain a robust tag division, male or female, even more difficult because you just don't have the same pool of talent. And I'm talking about pool, I mean quantity of talent to choose from in order to find the best of the best to kind of grow up into TV. Holy smokes, that went longer than I wanted it to.
Well, that's quite all right. But our live chatters.
God, Jorge's going to sleep.
No, well, I mean, that would be true if there wasn't another title, like a world title that they created themselves, that they do the same thing with, right? There's always like a secondary world title.
You're just being cynical. Now you're just being cynical.
Okay.
All right, well, let's get to some of our non-cynical, I say that cynically, super chats here because our live chatters are going insane that they want to get to some of these. And I think they're talking mostly about this one here from Dave Meltzer, who says, a credible source told me that Eric had big plans for the Honky Tonk Man. He was going to make him WCW champion, but Russo didn't want it. So Eric canned the story out of respect for Russo. All right, thank you so much for that one, Meltzer. And another one from, Josh Eternal, how silly. He wants to know this one, Eric. You die. God tells you that in order to get to heaven, you either have to work with Russo for a month or write for Meltzer for a month. Which one do you choose? What's the lesser of the two evils there?
I need more time. We don't have enough time on this show. I need to think. That would be.
Just
That's
flip
like
a
saying,
coin.
okay, you got a choice. You get to try to survive getting thrown off a 40-story building, or you can get hit by a train. Which one would you choose? I don't know. I have to think about it.
I'd go with the train.
All right.
I'd probably go with writing for Meltzer because then I wouldn't have to talk. At least I wouldn't have to talk to him or listen to him. Can you imagine listening to Vince Russo like all freaking day?
Bro.
My God. Have you seen that commercial on TV? It's like this health supplement. One comes in a red jar, one comes in a green jar. It's like it's like the super vegetable thing, and they have commercials that run all the time during the day. They got one guy, and the actors and actresses in the commercial are always like everyday real people off the street. They're not professional actresses or they're just like real people. But they're all characters. And one guy's like the New York actor. People say I'm a loud New Yorker. What is it? I don't know. Loud New Yorker. What do they mean? I don't know what they mean. What is that? That's Russo. You'd have to listen to that shit like all day working with him. Honest to God, like 5 minutes. I can take a minute and a half, 2 minutes. By 3 minutes, I can feel my nuts starting to twist.
That's the worst
That's
feeling.
how bad it is. Anymore. By the time I get to 5 minutes, I want to just screw his head off. Like just a giant. No, I didn't have to be Meltzer. Sorry. Ooh.
Christy is so lucky that she doesn't
Glad
have to
we
know what
talked
it feels
through
like
that
to have
one.
the feeling of twisting nuts.
I should be
Right. And they usually make the argument, well, you'll know what it's like to have a baby, which I will never do. So over here, making the right decisions, pain free, y'all. Just want to say. Here's a good one from Steve. He's not sure if he can ask questions. You certainly can, Steve. He asked, if Flair stayed in WWF, would Hogan have stayed with Vince and the Monday Night Wars not been as exciting? You don't love these hypotheticals, Eric, but can you think on that for a moment?
Let me figure on that one, son. I got to get my figuring hat on and kind of take a walk through the woods with that idea, if I might say so. Here, I that was fun. I've never done that before. I don't know. I can't. Who knows what could have happened? Here's what I do know, though. What I believe. Had Ric Flair not come back to WCW, I don't think Hulk Hogan would have come in. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. I'm about 90% sure I'm right about that.
Well, because wasn't it been said that Ric Flair helped get Hulk Hogan into WCW?
Ric Flair was the only person that Hulk Hogan had the confidence in to have his first couple of matches in WCW. Hulk knew he had to come in and make an impression. Rick was the only person that Hulk trusted to work with. So if Rick wouldn't have been there, Hulk wouldn't have come to WCW, and there wouldn't have been the NWO that you saw. There still would have been an NWO, more than likely, but it would have been a different NWO.
Wow.
Well, here's an interesting one. We're still talking about Hulk Hogan here from Mr. Whisper. Thanks for the super chat. He said Hulk Hogan had a supposed reputation for not wanting to lose to smaller guys, especially if they weren't as over as him. Did this apply to Billy Kidman, and did you have trouble convincing Hulk? Or maybe was that not true altogether?
I think it's a generalization that's been kind of crafted vis-a-vis a narrative that is not true. Hulk had no problem losing if it meant bigger business in the future. Keep in mind, when Hulk Hogan came to WCW, he was on a guarantee with no incentives. Now, there were some pay-per-view incentives, but that would have had to do with overall growth, not just whether he won or he lost. Okay? So there was no financial incentive for Hulk Hogan to not want to lose. None. He wouldn't have made less money like he used to in WWE by not being the champion. Hulk Hogan could have been in the opening match on WCW Saturday night on TBS, and he would have been paid the exact same amount as if he was headlining a pay-per-view at Halloween Havoc. There you go. So I think the narrative isn't, the narrative isn't true. But what Hulk Hogan was very careful about is not diminishing his value as a character and his ability to contribute to the overall business by doing stupid shit. And it had nothing to do with how big someone was or wasn't. It had to do with how good the storyline was and what the business reason for doing it was. So I think, and by the way, that's the way wrestling was built for decades and decades, including the 80s and including the 90s. That those guys that were driving the numbers and driving the revenue that were all paid in WWE based on incentives and performance, they were all very, very careful, and they learned to be careful, and they learned how to protect the value of their respective characters. And yes, Hulk Hogan brought some of that into WCW, but not in a selfish way. He was protecting himself from people like Vince Russo and potentially me, right? Because I didn't have a lot of experience. I didn't have a great track record. Why would anybody in their right mind put their 20-year amazing career and credibility as a character in the hands of some guy that you've never worked with and had no track record? You wouldn't, unless you were stupid and only wanted to have that position for a very short period of time because somebody fuck it up. So yeah, Hulk did protect that character and the value of it, but not in a way as to benefit himself. It was a way to protect the character. If you don't have any, it's like going for a ride on the plane and you're a little kid, you're 4 years old. You don't know what you're doing. You're just sitting on a plane hoping somebody's going to give you another cracker, having fun, making faces at the waitresses. You go, yeah, what a cute little daddy. And you're laughing right back at them, and they look funnier to you than you do to them. That's it. You're a baby. You don't know. You're a fucking kid. And all of a sudden the plane starts going down. What do they tell you? They tell you if you're the parent to make sure you give the oxygen to yourself first so that you're capable of saving the life of that little baby, that 4-year-old that's sitting next to you that doesn't know how to wear an oxygen mask or knows what the bell means. And Hulk Hogan did the same thing. He was protecting himself in order to be able to save this young company that was trying to become a competitor to WWE, but was miles and miles behind. That's not selfish.
My mind is blown right now. I don't know why. Like, I never would have thought of, like, I mean, I think it's like, it says a lot about you that you admitted, like, a lot of the reasons why Hogan, had that in his contract, because, like, even you just said it, like, it just never really crossed my mind that, like, maybe with the inexperience, like, he just wanted to make sure he was in a good environment. Like, I don't know, it just, when you said that, it like blew my mind for some reason. So I'm just
because you're looking at it from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just looking at it from the perspective of what you've read, what you've heard, what you believe, what you thought maybe is, maybe not be true, maybe partially true. You never know. You don't know, right? But when you hear something that forces you to think of that same situation from a different perspective with a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of information, you go, oh, fuck, well, that could be true too. And sometimes that's refreshing.
Yeah. Super refreshing. As refreshing as the tea that I had.
How's that doing?
It's there. We're there.
I don't know. I don't see a difference. I think we're getting the same perky, awesome Adam Woods as we usually get.
Okay, I like it.
It's drinking his specialty tonight. All right, we got to do one more super chat here from 82 Atlantic, who used a not very nice word, 82 Atlantic. That's why I haven't asked her super chat yet. But I think one Eric Bischoff will know how to handle it. He wants to know who's the bigger mark, Goldberg or Bret Hart. Be nice, 82 Atlantic.
I want to make it clear that I don't participate in any of the revenue from these things, these chats, super chats. But even if I did, and that $2 super chat was like $2,000, I wouldn't answer that question because I think it's an offensive question. It's offensive to both Bret, it's offensive to Bill, and I think it's just an offensive term to begin with. So I'll send you your $2 back, muckerfather. Don't ask offensive questions and expect an answer.
Here's a really nice one from Coach Rosie, who wants to know how the charity softball game was this last weekend. He said it looked like Sonny had a lot of fun.
I didn't go to the softball game. I didn't go to the golf tournament either. I'm just not that guy. I can't. I mean, I can show up for 5 or 10 minutes right as everything gets started. And I can wave, take some pictures, say hi to some people, look like I'm having a great time. But then I got to get the fuck out of there. I am just not that guy at all. And I don't golf. I don't understand why people golf. I almost when I look at the amount of time and money people waste on a silly ass game. But hey, whatever trips you trigger, man, I don't care. I don't judge. It's not my thing. But for me personally, I actually start to get a little anxious when I see people doing it. Now, last year I drove around with Sonny because Ernest Miller was actually in the tournament, so I had a little bit of a vested interest. I actually did want to see Ernest play and see how he would do. That shit wore off after about an hour. But I had 8 more to go, driving around in a golf cart, 90 degrees in the sun, drinking warm beer. That just was not my idea of a way to spend an afternoon. But I did go to an MMA fight that I thought was kind of fun. We had a great time. Sonny and I, and Sonny's wife, Julie, me and Mrs. B, and Dan Severn all went. And I had a great time there. So that was it. That's what I did.
That makes me so happy. Mario Yamasaki's. Hell yes.
Yeah. Oh, and I love to see Mrs. B and Sonny jamming out on Twitter. That was a good
wasn't that ridiculous?
BTS video.
And Sonny wasn't even drinking, That's the funny. No, he probably had, but maybe he had like 2 beers. Of course, he weighs like 60 pounds, so that tipped him over. Who knows? But he was dancing away. Miss B was dancing, having a good time.
We love it. We're going to take a little turn here because we got one more super chat from Mr. Whisper. And I think, Eric, you probably have a canned response ready to this question. And he asked, Eric, I was wondering if you had any comment about the turmoil going on with Vince McMahon. You answered that on the show this week. You answered that on your show this week. So what I want to do is go a little further and ask you.
Until some new information comes out, who knows what's true? I don't know what's true. I'm not going to speculate on things that may or may not be true or partially true. I don't know. So until I do, I give it about a half a second of thought every day.
All right, I'll just ask you this and then we'll move on. Have you been contacted by any journalists who are covering the story to offer a comment, either on the record or off?
Yeah. Who are the 2 writers? Do you guys remember? There's 2 in particular.
Yeah,
from the Wall Street
Journal.
Yeah. One of them is named Ted something or another.
Ted Mann?
Whatever. Yeah, Ted something. He called me. I let him know exactly what I thought. Actually, he want to know the truth, so I don't care if this gets out or not. He called me to follow up. Our shit's gonna go long. I don't know if that's possible or not, but
it's possible.
He called me because he wanted me to comment on a story that he had been told in the course of his research and his interviews for his story. Someone told him that when I went to WWE as a talent, was the victim of so many vicious ribs. And of course, he brought up the time that somebody took a dump in somebody's bag and left it in a locker room, whatever. Of course, that came out. But I was the victim of similar, if not worse, ribs. And it got so bad that I was afraid to dress in the roster locker room with everybody else. And I only would dress in the TV office or the TV locker room because they weren't real. Nobody else was in them. They were a set. I said, motherfucker, whoever you're talking to is lying to you. I have never been the victim of a rib in my entire life. Furthermore, I have never dressed in a locker room with talent in my entire 30-plus year career, ever, once, because I'm not a wrestler. Never have been. And for the largest part of my career, when I was getting dressed in dressing rooms, I was in management. And for sure, I'm not going to dress with the talent when you're management. That's their space.
Right.
right? Bullshit story. And then I proceeded to tell him what I thought about some of the things that he was telling me, to give him, as I did with you guys earlier, a different perspective.
All right. Well, then I don't have to. We love that. Justin Vick said the only ribs Eric saw were in catering, brother. Good one.
That's a fact. There ain't nothing that got through catering that I didn't do it. I didn't get the eyeball. I eyeballed that stuff as it was coming off that hot cart. Then put it out there, and then put it out there, and all the rest of me all lined up. They got their trays with them, and they got their ketchup, their mustard, all that good stuff. And I put my eyeballs on that stuff right as it was coming off the cart. I want to get there first.
Get her done.
Yeah. Eyeballs aren't all you put on it, huh? We're going to get to just a couple more before we get to our special private after party with our ad-free shows, friends. Nicholas Blake is dying to know what happened to the original Nitro set. Why did it change? He loved it. You've expressed that you loved it too, Eric.
It changed because around that time I was being pressured to delegate, because one of the raps on me, 96, 97, is that I was too hands-on. And Harvey Schiller, in his own way, mentored, if you want to call it that, me, to learn how to delegate. So I did. And Nick Lambros, who was my VP of legal, this is what happens when you put an attorney in charge of people that aren't attorneys. Our VP of legal said to Jay Hassman, he hired Jay Hassman, which goes down as one of the all-time worst hires in the history of hiring people. Jay Hassman did the same thing to TNA. But Nick Lambros hired Jay Hassman to be our VP of marketing. And as a VP of marketing, his job was to oversee some branding. And everybody got together and said, oh, we need a new logo. We've been using that same old Nitro logo for too long. Fuck me, I couldn't believe they said that. I said, all right, I'm gonna delegate. And they came back with that cat's ass logo because it looks just like a cat's ass when it's walking away from you. The tail is straight up in the air. And it just looks like a starfish, only it's a cat. That's what that logo looks like. A cat's ass.
Not wrong.
All right, before we head to our special private after party only for our ad-free shows, friends, we got one more from Desert Eagle, who is currently reading Controversy Creates Cash.
Time.
It's a great read so far. Would you do anything different with the Disney tapings if you had it to do over again?
No, it achieved its goal in multiples of 5. It served its purpose. It did exactly what I was hoping it would do, and then some.
Love that. Wow. Well, we have had tons of fun here tonight, and I love having everybody joining us live here. If you are an Ad-Free Shows top guy or subscriber, head on over to adfreeshows.com right now and check out the private after party where we are going to answer some more of our top guys' questions. And if you are watching on 83 Weeks, thank you so much for joining us live. Make sure you hit that big red subscribe button and click the little bell. Then you will be notified every single time that we go live, and you get to ask Eric all your favorite questions. Next week, Eric and Conrad will be covering, Eric's 2004 in WWE, which will be great fun. And we will hopefully be back here live with you all chatting about it. So we'll see you next Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific time right here on the 83 Weeks channel. And if you are ad-free shows, just stay tuned, guys. We'll see you.
And if you're not, join now.
Adfreeshows.com. Woo! All right. Stand by.
I'm going to get some water. I'll be right back.
Let's see. How do I end all of them except for one? Oh, okay. All right, guys. That was a great show. Yep. We are just clicking through here. Good stuff. Oopsie poo. All right.
Oopsie poo.
Oopsie poo.
That's
oopsie
weird
poo.
You guys know what ciabatta is?
Ciabatta?
Ciabatta?
No,
bread?